Hi, my name is Dr. Erica Cirillo McCarthy. I am here with the second installment of our writing workshops for your genetics class, and this one focuses on designing memorable elevator pitches. And these are short summaries of your research to accompany your research poster. So briefly, an elevator pitch is a very short 60 to 90-second, concise and persuasive summary of your research project. Within those 60 to 90 seconds, you want to make sure that you convey your research problem, your methods, and significance for a general audience. The idea is that a hypothetical, that you get into an elevator with someone who has a lot of money that can fund your super important research, but you don't have a whole lot of time to lay out your complex research. So within the time that it takes to go a few floors with this very important person who can possibly fund your research, you're able to convince them that your research is interesting enough, not to fund, but just to say, tell me more. That's really the goal of the elevator pitch, is to get listeners to say, that's interesting, tell me more. And I understand that your research projects this semester are super complex, and you might think, how in the world am I going to synthesize all of this hard work into just 60 to 90 seconds? Well, I invite you to head to the examples that I put here, tinyurl.com/Y4MD69LA. It's a great example of a set of elevator pitches that were created for the elevator pitch challenge for a scientific institution. And these are scientists who take really complex research projects and summarize them into effective elevator pitches. So after you spend some time brainstorming your elevator pitch, you want to make sure you get some words down on a paper. This is a time where some students might say, you know what, I can totally wing this. Most of us think we're good extemporaneous speakers, but in reality we're not. And by trying to do this on the fly, you might forget certain elements that are key to an elevator pitch, or you might go over your time and your audience will walk away. So these are the things that you want to make sure you have in your elevator pitch, and by writing it down, you'll ensure that it will be there. So one, what is the topic of your research? This could start super broad and then get really narrow to the things that you're focusing on. Two, what's the problem, issue, or question that you address in your research? What's your motivation, or what is your research question that your research seeks to address? And then finally, three, why is that problem interesting or important? So in other words, what's the significance of your research, and who will your research help or persuade or convince? So who are the constituents or stakeholders that would be affected by your research? That's another way to look at the significance. And again, just to reemphasize, you really want your audience member just to say, tell me more. It's not the entirety of your research. It's a very comprehensive but concise synthesis of your research. After you have it drafted, you really want to practice this, and you want to practice it as much as possible before your presentation. You want to time yourself and get it down to 90 seconds. Practice in front of your roommate, in front of your professor during office hours, or you can even come to the writing center and work with a writing tutor to practice your elevator pitch. And you get it down to 90 seconds by identifying what is most important. This is a wonderful way to identify what is relevant, not just interesting. So some final thoughts on elevator pitches. They're recursive, meaning they will change each time you present your pitch. You actually revise on the fly. Just to give you an example, when I had my first research poster for an international conference, I thought I had a great elevator pitch, but I really didn't. And how do I know this? The first time I pitched my research to someone who walked up to my research poster, they literally walked away in the middle. They were not interested. I was rambling on. It didn't make any sense. However, I revised it and I kept revising it as each person came up to my research poster, and I invited them to take a look at my research. As they asked questions, I revised and I weaved in the answers to those questions into my elevator pitch. If they paid no attention to certain elements, I would throw it out. So you kind of want to see this as a revision on the fly. You can have notes, that's perfectly fine. You can look at them, but you want to kind of make eye contact and make it engaging for the viewer. So these are the things that you want to consider as you're practicing your elevator pitch. You won't get this practice if you don't practice it in front of other people. And that's really key in kind of creating a final product that's really useful for your audience. All right, and so now I move into the activity part of this workshop. So this is a challenge, and I want you to take the time that it will take to kind of answer these questions. But after you answer these questions, you will have your elevator pitch kind of written out. So the directions: write no more than 2 sentences for each question. And if you can get it down to 1 sentence for each question, you're doing a great job. Write to a general academic audience, so try not to use too much jargon. Now, I know in genetics you're going to have disciplinary specific jargon, and that's going to be useful for your audience that's right there, your professor and your fellow classmates. All right, so let's get on to the questions here. First question, the hook. What is your research subject and or problem? So make us interested. Connect us with your subject. So you might be so entrenched in the lab, but really your research has real world implications. So how can you connect what you do with the people to whom you're speaking? So if you're working on something like, say, silk strands within corn, well, is that a problem for a lot of people when they eat corn on the cob? Actually, it is. So why not hook your audience right there and say, have you ever bit into an ear of corn and you've gotten one of those silk strands caught in your teeth? Isn't that bothersome? That's a great way to hook your audience in. 2, context. Why are you conducting this research? So what need does it fill? Who is asking for this research to be done, or who would benefit from this research? 3, research descriptions or objectives. So what is the research? In other words, what's your approach and methodology? So what are the steps that you took this semester in the lab that helped you complete the research? And then again, here we go with the significance. Why should we care, and what are your goals? So that is really important. Again, broaden it to a larger audience. Who would be interested in this research, and why is it important, not just to the scientific community, but perhaps even people outside of that scientific community? After spending time on this, again, practice the elevator pitch with whomever will listen to you. I promise you, the more you practice, the more confident you feel, and the more engaging a pitch you will give. Again, I invite you to come to the Writing Center to practice your elevator pitch, to get feedback on your research poster, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.